Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're jumping right into something I find absolutely fascinating. It's a conceptual breakdown called the architecture of affect and attitude. Now, just think about that phrasing for a second. It implies that the way we feel, the way we view the world, it isn't just random magic. It actually has structure, it has a design, a literal blueprint. We're going to deconstruct exactly how this whole thing works and really dive into the details of that incredibly complex relationship between your immediate gut feelings and your long-term worldview.
So that brings us right to the core mystery here. What actually builds your attitude? I mean, you wake up with one, you take one to work with you bring it into your relationships, right? But where does it actually come from? Because it definitely doesn't just fall out of the sky. As we unpack this topic today, I want you to ask yourself, what are the hidden psychological blueprints constructing your daily mindset? It's a super powerful thing to consider.
Okay, let's get right into section 1, the architecture of affect.
Whenever you see a word like architecture applied to psychology, it's a huge clue. It tells us we're not just dealing with floaty, abstract concepts. We are dealing with foundations, raw materials. And our very first material in this mental construction site is affect, or simply put, emotions. It's the foundational, immediate experience of feeling. Think of your emotions as your raw building materials. They're the bricks, the mortar, sudden delivery of steel beams just dropped right onto the construction site of your mind. They are immediate, they're happening right now. A sudden spike of joy, a flash of frustration, a wave of surprise. These are your raw and honestly sometimes chaotic elements. You can't build a house without materials. And well, you absolutely cannot build a mindset without affect.
Right, so if emotions are those raw materials, that leads us directly to attitude, and we can define attitude as the settled, structural result of how we think or feel. If emotions are those scattered bricks and beams we just talked about, your attitude is the actual house once it's completely built. It's enduring. It's the structural result. It's how those immediate, wild feelings eventually settle down and harden into a much more permanent worldview. Your attitude isn't just some fleeting thing. It's the finished architecture constructed entirely from the raw materials of your daily affect. Moving on to section 2, emotions impacting your attitude. Now, I want you to think about the friction between these two forces. On the one side, you've got emotions, which are these fleeting, immediate reactions. And on the other, you've got attitude, which is an enduring, constructed mindset. Putting them side by side like this really highlights the tension, doesn't it? Honestly, it's kind of like trying to build a perfectly straight, permanent brick wall using materials that are actively changing shape in your hands while you're holding them. Human feelings are incredibly messy. Yet somehow, some way, they manage to build the absolute most permanent, enduring parts of our personalities. It's wild.
And that brings us to an absolutely crucial dynamic, the impact of emotions on attitude. Because, you see, we aren't looking at these things in isolation, not at all. The core focus here is how a sudden, fleeting feeling physically strikes and then molds your long-term perspective. When you really start diving deep into the details of this topic, this is the exact lens you need to look through. We are literally examining the collision between the temporary and the permanent.
And that brings us to our final part, section 3, exploring the different theories.
So this psychological journey of understanding actually happens in 3 specific stages. Step 1, you enter the module. You start with your existing baselines and attitudes, whatever you brought with you today. Step 2, you experience exposure to new, structured information. And finally, step 3, you discover the theories. This is where you learn the different frameworks that scientists and psychologists use to actually map out that messy construction process we've been talking about. It's a fully structured path to understanding your own mind.
The core takeaway is exactly this. In this module, participants are exposed to different theories that are related to emotions and attitude. Now notice that word different. That's key. You aren't just getting one single perspective here. You're getting a multifaceted view of how your immediate feelings build your long-term mindset. So by the end of this, you're walking away with a super diverse toolkit for understanding the architecture of your own psyche.
Which leaves us with one final, deeply personal thought to ponder before we wrap up. Which theory will ultimately explain your attitude? Think about it. You now have the blueprints for how the human mind is constructed. The big question is, which one of those blueprints matches the actual floor plan of your own life? One of these theories is going to explain exactly how your fleeting emotions built the very attitude you are holding right now. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and hey, always stay curious.